I need to know everything, who and the what and the where, I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George, I hop in the Porsche, it's 5 and
Banter for the people, 37 and 37. We are out here, beautiful sunny day in Hollywood. What this series is about is talking with 37 people that have directly influenced my life in the last 37 years. And then also, I kind of want to do a few that are going to be like a bridge to whether it's individuals that have influenced me like from afar, or it's people that I believe are kind of the bridge into like what my next 37 years looks like. So we got Luke Davis in the house.
37 and beyond. Don't just limit yourself to 37 years. The next
Nice.
37.
The next 37.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
And then, well, at that
I mean, if
37,
I get
we'll then do the final 37.
Say it at my eulogy. If I get the next 37, I'm happy.
Okay, deal.
I would like to get to 100, but
I think 74, you'd be interesting as fuck. Oh, 101?
Yeah, that's nothing.
Come on.
yeah, then you're gonna say some crazy stuff by then.
Yeah. Or no, it'd be 111. My math,
I can't do
math
math.
is no good. It's
But
111.
One of the
111's
new
nice.
partners in Purple Banter, one of our great the A1 seat host on Vikings Banter,
Is it
right?
A1?
Helping us.
Yeah.
I don't know what you call those. I don't know. What's
know.
main seat?
Main seat
Camera one.
is
Your camera one.
Camera
seat.
one.
you two. Yeah, I get the one shot.
The
You guys
camera
get
one.
the wide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've become friends within the last, I guess, like year
and a half, yeah.
something like that.
Last draft was
Yeah.
when I came in.
And so we actually
Really
haven't
Feels
had
like longer than that.
many
does.
conversations deeper than Vikings.
Yeah.
Really, like within our the conversations that we've had, it's always just like F Kirk Cousins, F Kirk Cousins, F Kirk Cousins. See you never.
Yeah. Well, we just discovered that our birthdays are 9 days apart and we're the same age. So
Yeah.
I think we need some more conversations.
My birthday party is on June 1st.
Okay.
There will be a CC meet and greet.
Oh, can't wait.
It
I'm
is
definitely
all the way
asking
down in
about
Orange
CC.
County.
Are you guys
so.
going to match?
Well, now that I know he
ooh.
rocks cowboy hats, I'm gonna. You mean him and Cece or me and him?
No, you and Cece.
Oh.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
usually
You need like a
Yeah.
daddy-daughter.
for functions like that, I don't dress myself. I try to dress myself, and then I get graded heavily by
Okay.
Lulu and Cece.
Love
Oh,
that.
so you kind of have some Kirk Cousins in your home too?
Oh, yeah.
Because she lays out his outfits.
Yes, I 100% have. Like,
This is
hey,
why-
like we're going to my mom's house. I bought this shirt, and that's what you're wearing today.
Yeah.
That 100% happens
Yeah.
every weekend. So yeah, so I can see how Kirk Cousins and me are basically the same person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, similar.
One, I think, we initially connect with like your interest in Minnesota sports, which is hilarious because you grow up in Hollywood.
Here.
Doesn't make any sense of why you become a Vikings fan. How'd you find yourself like getting into just the NFL in general, the Vikings? Why did you find purple and gold to be your team?
Well, purple and gold is the LA colors, but they actually came from Minneapolis, which
Right.
everyone
True.
forgets. But I hate the Lakers, and they're piss yellow, not beautiful gold like we have in Minnesota.
Are you not a Lakers
Us
fan?
Minnesotians. No. So I was born in New York.
You're a Knicks fan. I always
Knicks
forget
fan.
this. I've
I'm
asked you that
Knicks
literally
and-
10
Knicks
times.
and
Yankees?
Yankees.
Okay.
So then the weird one is Minnesota. I wish I stayed
cold.
as a Giants fan. My uncle raised me on Giants, and they got 2 Super Bowls since. And he's, happy sometimes and miserable other times. And I'm just always like in this middle line of, you guys know
But
it.
think about your Danny Dimes rants. That would be terrible.
Oh, I would be miserable. But I had
Yeah.
2 Super Bowls to
Yeah.
hang my hat on. It would just.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't have shaped me into the miserable, fun person I am
Right.
now.
You'd be getting back to it right about now.
Yeah, exactly. Especially
Eli
with this
Manning would
draft.
be a hard guy to hang your hat on.
Eli would have,
Yeah.
but I could have beaten Tom twice. Wow, like nobody.
You
else
always
gets to
have
take
those weird
Tom
little
out.
things, yeah.
Yeah, like you stopped the undefeated season. Like you did God's work.
Yeah.
All of America hated them despite being named the Patriots, and they got to stop them. But no, it was one of those things. I watched them and I didn't love them. You see your team. It's like with Minnesota.
Yeah.
You just see them and you're like, those are my guys. Love them. No turning back. And I didn't feel that with the Giants. I hate the Mets, Nets, and Jets, so they were out. And then playing video games is what got me into football. You start playing Madden.
Yeah.
I think it was actually NFL 2K on Dreamcast was my game.
Dude, it was so sick.
It was
Randy
really,
Moss
really good.
was unguardable.
So
you could literally just tap the button
Yeah.
over the head.
or I guess it was
gone.
like NFL 98, 97,
Yeah.
something like that. So yeah, it was the Moss rookie year. It was Chris Carter. It was Robert Smith. It was Randall Cunningham before Dante. and it was just the best team to play with in video games, and they were purple and they had the horn and they looked fucking sweet.
Yeah.
And I played with them every time I played, and I just ran up the score. So then when I started watching football, it was a natural progression to root for the team that I know all the players and I know, it have brought me joy in video game form. So I started watching the Vikings, and then they were, the most exciting team, 15-1. And I never looked back. Once I find my team, I'm loyal to it, even if it's not. Even if it shouldn't be my team based on location, those are my guys.
That was lucky because that was such a great season. You had no idea that.
Also the most heartbreaking.
Right.
That was the highest and lowest you could possibly be. And then I was like spoiled. Like, oh, we're just going to go back next year, and then all the miserable shit happens. But what amazes me and what's so cool, another reason I love the Vikings so deeply is all the opportunities I've gotten in sports have been somehow with the Vikings. Like,
well, they're an approachable franchise in a weird way. Like, you can get access ideally, but obviously Vikings Banter doesn't have much access yet.
No, not yet, but that's what we're building. No, but even Vikings Banter, I go to the gym one day. I've been to 35 gyms in Los Angeles. One day I walk into the gym and I see this girl wearing a purple Vikings shirt. I'm like, oh, I'm a Vikings fan. She's like, I'm from Minnesota. I have a Vikings podcast. Nice to meet you. That's how we start talking.
And I don't think I've ever worn that shirt ever again.
I think you have, but only a few times.
Like it's not like in my like.
And it's not like everyone's approaching you like, hey, you're a Vikings. It's just cool. I decided when we talked a little bit. We saw each other a few more times after that at the gym, and then we started talking draft last year. Probably a month ago about this time. And you said, would you like to come do a segment on the show? I had never done a podcast, but I've grown up on camera. I grew up acting and stuff. And so I was like, all right, fuck it, let's do it.
This podcast was even on camera too.
I didn't know anything. I just knew podcasts were, Joe Rogan and a few other podcasts. I listened to Call Her Daddy. That was my only real.
Did you really?
I listened to Call Her Daddy when I was walking on treadmills at the gym at Equinox before I switched gyms.
Well, allow like men to get into girl conversation.
Except I have so many opinions.
Like hot girls talking about sex. I was like, all right, this is kind of fun.
And
then you start getting stuck into.
You know what I mean?
We could probably get her on Vikings Banter.
No, she's got a big podcast now. She went off and did her own thing. Yeah, she did good. Not as good as if she just stayed put and shut her mouth. But
I also don't think that Alex would have done what she's done.
No, she definitely went into a different direction.
It would have been more TikTok-y.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was, now, like, I stopped listening because they lost the
sex.
Slutty guy element. Yeah. But now, like, she's helping people and doing all these other things. Good for her. It just lost me. But yeah, I didn't have much experience with podcasts, but you asked me to do it. I was very willing, and that's how I met you. And then a year and a half later, here we are.
Yeah.
I'm one of the most influential people in your life. I think that was your opening.
That's
right?
37.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about me.
It's funny to think. Can you imagine the first full year, it's just myself and Katya doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then it's myself, Katya, and John.
On Zoom.
Can you imagine like what that podcast seems like?
I mean, I watched old videos.
Oh, God, you did?
Before I archived them.
Yeah.
I made sure to watch a couple, and it's hilarious. But it was so nice because you guys have this fun rapport with each other.
Yeah.
That, you two are business partners and friends and decide to do podcasts together and all these other things. And it's amazing that you two even get along still, let alone seem to enjoy hanging out with each other. So watching you guys talk about all these different topics is fun. And that's kind of the beauty of this entire organization is built on you two. And you actually like have fun.
Yeah.
That's the fun.
That's the only point.
If you're having fun, I'm going to have fun. Audience is going to have fun. We all know John Sweets is having fun.
Yeah. Yeah, he's having a great time.
Yeah.
If we're not having fun, that's when we circle things back, which honestly, we weren't having fun. And that kind of led to this.
Yeah, that's 100% what like some of this 37 and 37 is like getting our like tonality back for like what we want the through line of Purple Banter to be. Hopefully building more shows out that are like truly ours. That's also how we're reimagining Vikings Banter to be able to like say like, how can we attack the market like the right way?
How can this be like a
We
cornerstone?
have the sauce. We have all the materials. Now we just kind of have to like own it, invest in it a little bit, not only with time, but with some money and finding the right sponsors and like all that.
Yeah.
We played around in the sandbox long enough. And then I think we started like working with a bunch of people who I continue to love to work for. But I go, oh shit, like we've learned enough now that I think we have to continue to like build out what we desire, or else we'll lose ourselves in all these other worlds.
Right.
And it's fun, but it also gets exhausting.
Yeah. Well, we've had conversations obviously off camera about the comparisons where, you know, you want to build like a Barstool type thing, and Barstool started with Dave and then a couple of his boys. I think Barstool
Big Cat came around like 5 or 10 years
and
later.
Part of my take, like, or not part of my take,
PFT
the 1 minute
and
KFC
Kevin.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they were just boys, and now like they got away from that for a long time. They kind of didn't have those guys on camera, but now you see when they all talk to each other, you're like, oh shit, like this is how they started. It's just a bunch of friends having fun. And
Right.
now they've gotten back to that. So you guys are kind of ahead of that curve where you're doing that now, and that's what plays, you know? Like
Yeah.
even the sports podcasts on Barstool were garbage for so long, and then they try things like they're on the world stage. They're the biggest one, probably like Umbrella Corporation, and they're still fucking up constantly.
They
That's
have
what's
more
cool about
find
audio
what
issues,
works.
video issues
Yep.
than any other broadcast in the world.
It's
Yeah.
hilarious.
That's so what I love so much about who they are.
Yeah.
Is they don't care.
No.
Like watching Dave be like have a shitty webcam is unbelievable. Like,
God,
dude,
that was funny.
you're worth $100
COVID.
million,
Yeah.
and you can't figure out your webcam.
Mhm.
But that's why you like that. And then you know, we're trying to find ourselves like in a different space within culture of how our voice is a little bit different, the types of conversations we want, the people that we want around us. We're in Hollywood in itself is going to make us different. And then I think being Minnesotan also, like, definitely.
Is that what it is? Minnesotan?
Yeah.
It's not Minnesotian? I don't know.
It could be.
It could be.
I would like
You
Minnesota.
guys said it pretty confident.
No,
I
no,
thought
it's
it was
no, it's for
Minnesota.
sure Minnesota.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I say we
A-N.
could like, you know, if we
T-A-N.
want to change it, we could maybe get there if we get our influence up.
We could
Yeah,
just
if we
start
get the
it.
key to the city one day, we might come with some ideas.
Let me tell you, we can't even get an article in our alumni newspaper, so I don't know if we can get that. St. Thomas, I'm
Because
like,
you lost your
I'm calling
Catholic
you out.
ways. You're not Catholic enough for them
I was
anymore.
never
She's
Catholic,
in church
though.
like every day.
Well,
I'm in church
Well,
all
there
the
you
time.
go.
I go to church more than anyone.
She really is.
It's Holy Week.
And I think one of the bridges that's interesting to me, you know, being from Minnesota, is like this area is looked at so much from a lens on a camera. You see all these like notable people that we grow up with, that all these reality television era like blew up during our world, which kind of invited us in to like what's happening in Hollywood, even though it's this big, glossy, rosy situation.
Well, we even talk about it like while we were building Purple Banter of, you know, Entourage was so huge when we were growing up, and you'd come to LA and you'd be like, oh my God, I got to go to Earth Cafe because that's where Vinny and everyone goes to. And
Yeah.
when we've been building these shows, it's like we want people to go, oh, that's Barney's. That's where Vikings Banter is built or shot.
And look how big it's gotten since we started there.
Yeah.
Like, we
Yeah.
take full
We
credit
full
for
credit.
their glow
The
up.
New York Times articles, the LA Times articles,
Yeah.
it's 100% us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My
Taylor
brother
Swift.
was in those articles, so it's like a perfect little circle.
Yeah.
And what I think so interesting is like you grew up in this lifestyle around individuals that like we would know well.
Yeah.
And you see a lot of people either make that their entire identity or get like lost in the sauce with it. And maybe it's because you've like grown up or you've just been so close to it for so long. It's interesting that you don't make that your identity.
Yeah.
You have a totally different like view on life. It's in a weird way, it could be available to you anytime at any day if you want to like jump back into that world. I want to know about like what that experience is like. Is it obvious at the time when you're growing up in it that you're in something that the whole world understands from a certain perspective?
It was funny, right as you were just talking about Entourage, it hit me that like you saw Earth from Entourage, not Earth the globe,
Earth
like
Cafe.
Earth Cafe.
Earth Cafe from
yeah.
Entourage. I never realized that would be a thing from somebody not from here, because I just grew up like I went to Beverly
Get a-
Hills High
get a
School.
green juice
I
at
would
Earth.
walk
Yeah.
to Earth Cafe
Yeah.
at lunch and like walk back to school, and then I just see a show that almost was ripping from our lives living here. I think that's why it didn't affect me, because it was so accurate in where they would go. So that is a really funny observation that I never even considered, that people come here and they go to Earth maybe because Vinny and the
I
guys
think people
would go
still
there.
go to Earth because of
no,
Entourage,
it makes complete
honestly.
sense. Like Entourage was so like guerrilla in its, you know, just walking around LA with a camera,
Yeah.
and it was a lot of fun. I didn't appreciate Entourage when it first came out, but then I rewatched
Yeah.
most of it like a year ago or in COVID or something, and it was so much fun to see all of those things because a lot of that,
almost too close
it
to
has
home
gone.
for a second.
Yeah, it's not as it's not the sparkle has kind of worn off. And I grew up a little background. My dad owned nightclubs, so I was very in the
Immersed.
scene. Yeah, I literally grew up sleeping in the back of nightclubs because my parents were very close and they didn't want to leave me at home with a babysitter. They didn't want to leave me at home with a babysitter, so they'd bring me to the club and I would just sleep in the office until they were ready to go home. They'd take me home. So by the time I was 6, I had this Argyle vest that I would walk around. That was like my going out outfit. I looked fucking sweet. So I'd throw on my Argyle vest. I'd go to the club.
Argyle too.
Oh, it was great,
You
bro.
put like a baby blue and some navy
mine was like
or
a
a
tan
green
with a brown. It was
Yeah,
it
you're
was
too
hot.
trendy. That's LA, yeah.
And then I would walk. I would leave the office, and like there was no cell phones. Nobody could take a picture. But this 8-year-old was leaving the office, walk behind the bar, pour myself a Coke on the gun, walk back, and everyone's at the bar. Like,
while the mess is going on.
Yeah, no, full nightclub going, like midnight, and I'm just like pouring a Coke. Bartenders are all cool, like they know not to like trample me.
Oh my God.
This
I
is
would
a
just walk
Netflix
back
show in
to the
itself.
Yeah,
thing.
100%.
And like that was my life. And then I had my birthdays 10, 11, 12. We all had our birthdays at the clubs. And then not while they were going on, like we would close them down for my birthday.
But like premiere settings and totally inappropriate for like a 12-year-old to have a birthday
absolutely,
party.
yeah. And you wonder why I became an alcoholic. But
So you would watch Sweet 16 and be like,
this is boring.
What are you
this is what
doing,
you guys went
dude?
to? Yeah. So I just grew up in that was the norm to me. I would get upset when my parents wouldn't take me out. And then by the time I was 15, I knew every door guy and security guy by name, and they knew me, so they would always take care of me and like call my dad if anything happened, which nothing ever did. But
Right.
there was always that eye on it.
Mm-hmm.
that's a weird environment
It was very
where
weird.
it almost keeps you a little controlled.
Yeah. And it
You
didn't
could either
affect
abuse
me.
the privilege or you could like use it really respectfully.
Yeah,
You're like,
yeah.
hey,
It could definitely
everything's
go both
going back to
ways.
dad or whatever, right?
It bit me in the ass later on, or I guess saved me in like a silver lining kind of way when I was getting a little out of control. My dad was hearing about everything, no matter where I went. So at the time I hated it, but it actually ended up being a better thing, because I eventually got sober. But just as far as like the city goes, like, I turned 18. I went from being this dorky nerd in school to everybody wanting to go to clubs. So I gained popularity for no reason other than being my dad's son.
Sure.
So it was normal seeing, every celebrity at the club and
And that was
to
like the heyday of
drugs and
bottle
drinking.
service and
Oh yeah.
clubs
Oh, and the friends I made were Lindsay Lohan, Hillary Duff.
Yeah.
Like these were my best friends. We went out all the time. It was a lot of fun. And they were cool. Like I never saw them as a problem, but it was good because it I was never jaded to it. Just see them and be like, okay, cool, celebrity, person, cool
Yeah.
people.
Because you were,
so it was
you
definitely
grew up in
different.
boiling water. You didn't like jump in a hot pot, which
Yeah.
you see kids around here jump in the hot pot all the time. You're like,
Yeah. Well, then
it's
that's the other.
quick.
So the flip side of it, everyone always, or at least I've come across a lot of people. They move here and then they complain like LA people are fake. LA people are this. Everyone's trying to, social climb, and it's like, yeah, that's true because nobody. But it's mostly transplants. Like nobody moves here.
That's
to
the fakest
become-
person is the transplant.
Yeah, like you've moved here not to become like a veterinarian or a fucking engineer. Like you came here to be famous,
Right.
or rich, or like there's no innocent reason to move to Los Angeles unless you've already have a family and you just want to live somewhere by the beach. But even that, like, why would you pick the most expensive city in the country to live in?
Yeah.
So really, you're coming here to social climb and try to make your way to the top. It's just how people go about that. You can go about it by fucking people over, or you can go about it like you guys and work hard and make friendships and relationships. Sometimes there are shortcuts by fucking people over, but then you sacrifice your
bites you in
good
the ass,
Catholic
It is
upbringing.
It is crazy how small this town is.
Oh my God.
And especially when you get into these little circles. Literally, like one of our hosts like is great friends with your brother.
Yeah.
And so like meeting him out, and I'm like, oh shit, like I actually with your brother all the time. We do the Vikings podcast. He's like, oh no, yeah.
And you guys
that's
are
right.
at like a porn party.
Yeah, we were literally at a porn party, and
And you're a St. Thomas Tommy. Like,
Married,
just
yeah.
moving over
Yeah.
here.
I'm like, I got to go home at like 10:30. I have to be back in Orange County by 10:30 to be able to grab this child. But yes, I was at a porn party.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love it.
But that is Los Angeles.
That's the fun of it. That's the appeal when you
Mhm.
actually get past the, oh my God, I did coke with, like I did coke and Leo DiCaprio was sitting next to me. Like, you get over that kind of stupid, fickle bullshit and you move on to the fun of finding these people in these random places and making real friendships and developing business relations. That's the beauty of it. But I always complain. So again, I acted growing up. So I was in a lot of acting classes and it was so much fun to meet people because no one else is from Los Angeles in acting classes. It's mostly Ohio, a lot of fucking Ohio
Really?
people, so many Ohio people. And then every other state and walk of life, you get
So
some-
they'd all moved here, like all
they all
kind of
moved
child
here
actors,
and they
their
all ended
parents
up in a
come.
class, and that's where you make friends,
Right.
Because how else are you going to meet people unless you go out? But a lot of them are just struggling to make rent, different waiters and waitresses, bartenders, and they all just congregate in these acting classes. So I would meet them there and they would always be like, holy shit, you're from here? That's so crazy. But I get this interesting perspective of meeting these people who have moved here and how they perceive LA, and they're like, it's, everyone's fake, everyone's this. I'm like, no, like you've moved and met other people that moved. Like the people from LA who aren't, there are definitely shitty people who are from LA, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But so many of us, like I have my best friends who are all from LA, and like, we don't fuck each other over. Like we're all good people,
Yeah.
It's just, if you can make it in LA socially, I think you can make it anywhere because there are way more sharks in the water. It's just, you're going to find them anywhere. There's just more of them.
I just think it's a constant extension of high school.
Yeah.
In LA.
A little bit, yeah.
Mhm.
I think more because what I love so much about LA is its impacting culture, and I love that people are flying all the time. There's like probably 250 people on a plane right now that are moving their lives to like create something special here. I think the line of fame is a disastrous thing to hope for because what is fame and why do you want to do it? And what are you willing to create yourself into in order to capture this weird light? But what I love about it is at the end of the day, everybody needs each other out here. So doing business in media or in like these spaces, if you're smart about it, everybody needs you to be able to be with the next project, to build something. Like to be able to get someone on a podcast is generally pretty easy because they're like, well, yeah, I need my next podcast to be able to have something come out.
Well, I think the other reason too, just coming from Minnesota, is just different stages of life. Where like out here, it's not weird for people to be like in their 30s and not married, kids, whatever. So your friends become your family. And because we know relationships are so tight here, it's like back in Minnesota, they go from college to a marriage to this, and you see friendships diminish there. That's been my experience.
Yeah.
So I think here you just like hold on to people in your circle a little bit closer too, which I really like.
Yeah. When you move away from the place that you were born, and like a friendship obviously gets less day to day because you've moved away. It's less weird than that friend that lives literally next door to you.
But
and that friendship was probably going to fade away a little bit regardless.
Yeah, I just see it with my friends back in Minnesota where they come to LA and they're like, oh, it's crazy how you can walk somewhere and you like run into them and you're like, hey, like let's grab dinner, or you still see your friends all the time. They're like, I have to make plans with my friends like 4, 5, 6 months in advance. Like it's just a little bit more natural here.
Yeah. Except during festival season. Then everybody's
everyone's
like
gone.
Which is the best
scripted.
because no one's
Empty.
here.
Oh, it's the best.
It's the best.
Yeah, no, you learn quickly.
Yeah.
At Coachella, the best time of the year is when everyone's at Coachella.
Like you got to go to Target, go on a Saturday.
I still
Coachella
haven't been to
weekend.
any of them, so I don't even know.
I mean, you got to go a couple times to
Yeah.
experience it and see it, and then just get out of there. 'cause
Yeah.
it's, you get
I would do
over
the
it.
Airbnb. I like the little
Yeah,
side
you have
parties,
to.
the little
Well,
like
who doesn't like a Palm Springs
Coachella
weekend?
adjacent parties look really fun.
Yeah, I did that at the end. I did like 6-7 years of Coachella, and then was over Coachella and just started doing the day parties, and then that got boring quick too.
Yeah. And now
It's just
Coachella's on
LA.
YouTube. Have you been able to click
Yeah.
around on it? It's kind of, it's like watching the NFL.
Twitch, right? Is that what it is?
Well,
or-
it's basically like Red Zone.
Mm.
So you can you could literally be like, oh, Doja Cat,
Highlights.
and
Yeah.
then Tyga's coming up.
That's crazy.
Oh, let's flip to Little Yachty. Oh, Little Yachty was freaking weird this year, kind of emo and shit.
Oh, was he?
Flip back to Doja, where she's I mean, a Satanist is a sinner, but I
It's
hope
amazing.
she can get back to her
Yeah.
young, fun, youthful, inspiring self, but she's in a bad place. So then you can like just move around.
Yeah, I don't know any of these artists anymore. I've quickly become entrenched in the old guy yelling at the cloud. Where I'm just like, who the fuck is what's a Doja Cat?
Yeah.
And I'm all in. Like I'm not, embarrassed of it. I'm all in quick. 36 going on 85.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now I think what's really interesting, and we do have saws in the background. I think they're building a new tower or something. I don't know. The Davises are interesting, and I like it.
Elon Musk needs a new satellite
Yeah.
for the sky. I think we're helping out.
Yeah.
Now, like, it's definitely a thing where, like, to those who much been given, much is to be expected, right? So we feel this, like, weird burden of, well, when you live in a place where, like, there's so much abundance, how do you even start from scratch, right? And I think that anybody, like, truly within themselves, like, you want to start from scratch and, like, experience that, like, growth period. And I think you've probably been able to see with maybe even within yourself or a lot of your friends, like, it's hard to live you're living all these other people's wildest fantasy of where they hope they end.
Yeah.
And that's where you're beginning. And how do you deal with like that level of pressure, or do you relinquish yourself of it?
So that's something that you carry through life. So for instance, my dad was a cab driver in New York. Grew up in the Bronx, absolutely no money. Dad fled the Holocaust. His dad, my grandpa, fled the Holocaust, came from Hungary here, changed his name at Ellis Island. My dad starts from the dead bottom, but also he started so much higher than his dad. So he even felt pressure. Like I see my situation as pressure.
Yeah, but he's like, Dad got out of the Holocaust.
Yeah, like
I
we
had
were in
pressure.
a 2-bedroom apartment in the Bronx with, barred windows. He was an actual cab driver in New York, moved up to limo driver, bought into the limo company, used that money to, buy into a bar, moved from New York with an infant and a wife. My mom is from Perth, Australia. Left right after high school. She says she finished high school. I don't believe her. Basically, high school dropout, moved to New York from Australia before cell phones and all this way to still interact with her family, to be a model and an actress. Met my dad. The story goes on. So you're just like, when I was younger, I was like, I'm never living up to these expectations, And then so many people want to say, like, I'm going to do it on my own. It's like, why? My parents have been very supportive in being like, don't look at us as a burden, like use what we're giving you. You have this platform to start from. Why would you say, I don't want that, look a gift horse in the mouth and start from the bottom again? So it took a long time for me to come to terms with that and be comfortable with it and not, and like I was so worried about what other people would think, like, oh, like, rich boy, silver spoon, all that shit.
Yeah.
And you're like so worried about it. Who gives a fuck, Okay, cool. I have one life, you only really get 40 years of it to really enjoy.
Right.
So, and after you've kind of come to terms with everything. So I've now come to terms with just like appreciating what they've given me and using my privilege that I've grown up with. That's why I'm so interested in jumping into the middle of things and not having to start it, like even with us and the podcast, it's exciting that you guys have already built it. And then people ask me sometimes, oh, like, can you just do it on your own? I'm like, why would I do it on my own? Like, I maybe could, but
it's more fun to do stuff together.
But yeah, one, it's collaborative, which was what I always enjoyed about acting until the pandemic, when they started doing
Zooms,
the self tapes and all that stuff. And I'm like, I got
even
into
though Hey
this
Joe's
business.
a great app and you should use it for your self tape.
Yeah, if you're gonna,
it's not self tapes.
If you're gonna do
Virtual
it, do
auditions.
it with that. No, I just it's just a different business than I got into, so I got out of it, and I was like, but I still want to be creative and I still want to be collaborative. So how can I scratch that itch? And then this appears out of nowhere, and you're like, huh? Do I see that and go, fuck that, I'm going to start from the bottom and do it myself? Why? Take what you've been given and go from there. So I appreciate what my parents have started and what I can now try to grow. Is it pressure? Abso-fucking-lutely. They still work harder than me. You know, I'm the able-bodied one, but they just have so much more experience that I'll never be able to
They're
get.
like these
until...
racing horses that have a pace.
Yeah,
that you're like,
they
dude,
understand it.
How do I keep up with this pace? Like they don't quit. My dad's like this. I'm like, this guy has like an engine on him.
Yeah.
And
they grew up with less tools, which made them work harder.
Dude, just
mind you, they can't
different.
turn on the fucking TV. I was trying to help them turn on this like fragrance thing today. It had a tiny little remote. It was the easiest thing I've ever seen to use. But you know, they're sitting there like with a screwdriver trying to take it apart because they just grew up with a different mentality.
Yeah. Well, my dad's the type of guy who he gets locked out of his Instagram all the time.
There you go, yeah.
And he's
for
like,
the best.
And so then he calls me the other day and like we put up his he does these like mindful moments and I have him in a playlist on Purple Banter's clip page. And he's like, LJ, I'm going off on my own. I'm starting my own YouTube page.
He said that?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So I'm like, cool.
We got fired?
Yeah, well,
And he's like, I'm just gonna start. I'm gonna figure it out. I'm like, good luck, dude. Like, I'm just like, I already have this program on your phone. Go to your little YouTube studio, post the thing. And he's just like, we'll see. He's like, I'm getting my website done first. I'm like, I'm gonna do your thing, bro. I love it. We're always we work. I think where my question really started, and I think is really important, is a lot of people when we're looking up the ladder in life, we sometimes have a lot of resentment for children that are born into scenarios that we hope our children get born into.
Yeah.
And we lose respect for individuals within that context of like up the ladder.
Yeah.
But there is levels to this. And so America's got into this context where we love this story of growth, but we forget that like your family has a beautiful generational growth story.
Yeah.
So we forget it always started from nothing.
Yeah.
That's how it works. And just because it's like 3 generations, 4 generations, sometimes 10 generations down the line,
shouldn't have to apologize.
Lose sight in that. Like we get way too lost in the sauce. Now, if someone's running around being like, well, I have nothing, blah, 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 like fuck, and they're like lying about it, whatever, that's not going to work for them anyway. So then people shouldn't even be worried about that person.
If I was running around, there's ways to handle it. You know, you see a rich kid running around going, oh, I'm so fucking rich and I did it myself. And then you look and you go, you didn't do anything, you know, like, why are you bragging about, then like daddy's money comes into play. But, you know, it's all about how you carry yourself. And even those people, it's like, okay, clearly this person isn't worth your time and effort. Fuck them, move on. You know? But yeah, I mean, you go into the comments of any, you know, even this video probably, if this clip is posted, like it'll be like, oh, we're supposed to feel bad because you grew up with money. It's like, no, don't feel bad. Don't hate. Who gives a flying fuck? Like, you know.
Well, that's the value of certain positions in life, that it actually gives you this weird. I think about this as like this random white dude from Minnesota.
Yeah.
When people start throwing out the cards of why I can't, I have none of those cards. None of them. None of the whole like woe is me card. I got none of them. Yep. I've obviously have struggled with things, and I constantly am battling things internally and externally that I feel woe is me every once in a while, but the world would never give me a woe is me. They'd never grab my card and go, oh yeah, LJ, that's right. And that puts you in this weird disposition that I think creates an incredible amount of personal growth.
Yeah.
Where you have to be introspective. You're like, I don't get to run around and be like, you're supposed to because of this. It's just like, dude, you better figure this shit out. And I think it's valuable for personal growth when you can get through it.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a huge believer in everything happens for a reason. You know, that cliche that as you grow up, you're kind of like, yeah, like even this too shall pass, but it goes both ways. It's like this too shall pass, a bad time in your life. Like, okay, I'll get past this, but also this too shall pass. If something's really good, it's like, you know, don't forget, shit's going to come.
That's the weirdest anxiety. Of when it's going
it's horrible.
really well. You're like, dude,
what's gonna come?
Something's gonna crash.
What's about to blindside me? But you take your lessons from both of it. I think things come in tests until you pass it. So you'll see the same, you know, whether it be a girl like that, you know, keeps coming back, and then you just can't get over that kind of girl, and it just keeps coming until you figure it out, and then you're like, oh, I beat this, and you never see it again. Same with business, or you know, whatever it may be. Those tests come. And it's, you know, that's what shapes you and how you react to those situations.
And you see the full circle moments. It always comes back. Like see the through line somewhere. I mean, we're always talking about shitty Fridays mean good Mondays or vice versa. We've seen a lot of that.
Sometimes they stack up, like we've
Sometimes
said.
exactly.
Usually,
had a couple weeks,
usually a shitty Monday
You just
turns
didn't
into a
pass
good
your
Friday,
test.
or a
Yeah.
shitty Friday turns
Yeah.
into a good Monday, and then every once in a while you line them up. But then again, there will be a moment, hopefully sooner than later, that you stack up a lot of great Mondays, great Fridays, better.
Or what you deem a good Monday was wrong the whole time. You know, you're looking for, you know, getting, you know, having sex with a random girl as like, this is the
Greatest
peak.
Monday. Yeah.
And then you realize, no, it's not about that. It's about creating a lasting relationship. Or,
Right.
you know, spending time with your daughter is, you know, something that's way more valuable than making a little bit of money for something. You know,
Yeah.
there's always, so it's definitely perspective, and the only way you can get it is by going through shit and growing.
So how do you now go to the point where you're like, I really want to lean into like where sports commentary is, and the knowledge that you've acquired, you've built it as like a hobby. You've treated your hobby like a job for the last
Yeah.
however many years it's been, probably since you were 12 years old.
Yeah.
How do you create that next bridge where you're like, oh, I actually kind of want to do this for real and take it seriously? And why?
Yeah. Give it a second
Yeah.
for them to finish that. No, it's funny because my dad, since I was 10 or whatever, I got seriously into sports. I used to have this magnet of the standings of the NBA, and you would like switch the magnets based on who won the games and then have to
that's
write next to
fun.
it. And it was just like the dumbest thing ever because all of that information was available in a newspaper at that time. It sounds like I'm the oldest person in the world. I'm not. Like, it was right before the internet, really. So that's how I kept track of the NBA standings. And I remember like putting the Minnesota Magnet higher and then the Lakers down. And it was so crazy. Like, why put all that effort in for information that'll just come out the next day? But yeah, even back then, my dad was like, how are you going to turn this into a profession? I'm like, shut the fuck up. This is my hobby. Don't ruin my hobby. And
Right.
then now, almost 30 years later, with all this amassed information and this horribly beautiful, horrible memory that I remember every moment and every statistic and all of this information, now I actually have an outlet to use it. And why? Because Equinox wouldn't let me wear a mask, so I switched gyms.
No, made you wear a mask.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Equinox forced me to wear a mask in the fucking locker room.
Oh, dude, I did the religious exemption, and I gave him so many biblical quotes, and it was so heavy.
And they told you
we did a
don't
Christian
care.
one and a Muslim one,
Yeah.
and then put it in together, husband and wife, and we're like, it's not happening. They just totally bowed down. I was the only person
That's
that could
amazing.
At
walk
Equinox?
around without a vaccine.
Oh my God.
I could do the no mask thing, and people would be like, oh.
So
Yeah, it
that's
was
legit.
great.
I still have that, like,
Sorry, that's Trump Tower being built in the back here.
I still have that Jewish guilt that I'm like, I'll fight, but if everyone starts telling me like, all right, I'll back down. Like, I'm not gonna fight for it that much. So Equinox made me wear a mask. I went back to an old gym I had checked out 10 years prior. I meet you, you guys bring me into this awesome thing, and now combined, we have the tools to build this awesome thing,
Yeah.
and we all have the same vision for it.
Sure.
You know, so going forward, yeah, it's taking what we all love with the Vikings and adding new stuff to it, and adding fantasy football and adding sports gambling, and and thanking Barstool and these other companies that have kind of paved the way to make that a thing.
Yeah,
Because before
100%.
my useless knowledge was like, you're going to be a Sports Center anchor.
Or you're just the guy at the bar.
Yeah, exactly. The idiot at the bar. No,
Yeah.
we're in a good time in our lives at our age, with our
Yeah.
personalities, with our looks, with our hair.
Yeah.
With your
I will
hats,
get no, but
though,
if we get Purple Banter rolling, I'm doing plugs.
Plugs.
I'll do them live.
that's going to be
You'll have
I'm gonna
our
have
measure of
hair.
I'm
success
gonna
is
have
your hair length.
Yeah,
Immediately,
100%.
I have flow. I got great curly hair. Like,
Ooh.
Do you? Yeah.
I got a good haircut though. I'll tone
yeah,
my
okay.
face.
You look good.
Look at
Okay.
that.
I saw the
Like,
photo.
not
You're going to have like full on
But
hockey
I was
hair.
looking bad. I put up a post yesterday and I was like, hey, I look like a homeless accountant. And my sister immediately, within the same minute, I can even show it on the thread. She goes, no, you look like a perv that hangs out in mom's basement in his PJs all day, watches anime and drinks Mountain Dew. And I'm like, that was too
First
quick
of all,
too soon.
but also that sounds
Whoa.
fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Let's normalize that being the goal. Fucking Mountain Dew and anime.
That was like
Yeah.
very
Pajamas?
specific, very
Yeah.
quickly.
And I would do Code Red though. She wasn't
She
even
wasn't even. Yeah, no, she. Well, that would be lower than Code Red. That's
Yeah.
why. Okay.
but bleeding into the sports space and just taking this knowledge and bridging the gap.
And our personalities and fun, like that's what's different from us. My dad, again, we were discussing, and to them, to the older generation, like your dad, like, I'm just gonna do it. And it's like, you could just do it back then. You just forced your way into everything and you got it done. Now it's more difficult because you're competing with the entire world and the internet, and you have to understand so many things. You got to tread lightly in a lot of way and tiptoe, and fucking algorithms and editing. There's so much more now than just being like the first to market. So my dad's like, oh, well, find a gimmick. And I'm like, we don't need a gimmick. That's what people don't understand, is like, we don't need to be whatever that fucking Bobby girl is who interviews
Bobby
people who I
Altoff.
can't stand, where it's like,
Is she still a
this
thing?
isn't my real
Oh
personality.
yeah,
Is she
her
really?
like Ryan
She's
Garcia
massive,
interview was
yeah.
huge.
But like, I don't need a gimmick. You don't need a gimmick.
Yeah.
You don't need a gimmick.
yeah,
because
I'm a gimmick.
we're
Like,
fucking
yeah.
weird
Like a
as
cartoon.
is.
Yeah.
And I have this autistic memory of sports information, but we're passionate. No matter what we're talking about, we're passionate.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't need a gimmick. I just know that this will be good if we actually put in the effort and work at it.
Well, what's
Were you-
funny is
oh,
I
sorry.
wonder if if your dad went back to that time, I wonder if he would say like, oh, I turned my hobby into my career, which is like basically what.
He did not.
Okay.
The weird thing about it
His
is
hobby was money.
that era
So I guess.
like didn't have that luxury. We live in this weird bougie era where I honestly say like anybody in America right now like can't go woe is me as much as you think you can.
Yeah.
There's obviously a few people out there like, yeah, you can woe is me yourself,
Sure.
but you still shouldn't, because it's still all available to you whether you know it or not. But like we live in an LA where there is a lot of like depression, anxiety, and people like being like, my dreams aren't coming true. Dude, you're living the dream.
Yeah.
Like, stop.
You're
it.
living someone's dream.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
true.
And we get to the fact that we get to like come onto mics unprepared and like talk shit about a team that we like and hopefully build a career out of it, just to be even have a glimmer of hope that could potentially be of value for us monetarily, for our families and all that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But the monetary element doesn't actually really matter as long as you're having the right amount of fun. And once you stop that, I think all of it actually comes back to you like tenfold.
Well, look at Pat McAfee. 5 years ago, everyone was like, this fucking...
No shirt.
First of all, he was
Yeah.
a punter in the NFL, which, again, is somebody's dream. But when you look at the NFL, you're like, who gives a shit about a punter? Then he becomes a sports analyst, and everyone kind of knows his path to this. But now, with how the world has kind of changed, he was just doing him.
Yeah.
He was just having fun, and now everybody's interested in it. So it's
You
the
could easily
perfect
look
time
at
to
him
just
and be like,
have
well,
fun.
he didn't have an uphill battle. It's like,
No,
dude,
yeah.
yeah,
Oh, he was a punter.
absolutely.
He was a fucking punter. You know how hard it is just to make it as one of the 32 punters in the NFL?
Yeah.
And then to have enough personality that people care about what you have to say afterwards, get on a podcast, be the standing up podcast guy, like wearing fucking cut sleeve shirts. Like there were so many reasons for people to be like, this is unprofessional and not what we're used to, and you're out.
Well, and a lot of people watch him because he's sort of an idiot.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes the take that you want. You
he's
want
the
a
man's
broy
man.
punter.
Common man.
Yeah. And that's why it works. And, like most people at ESPN before him were overpaid prostitutes.
Yep.
Like saying just bullshit. You're
Yep.
like, what are you talking about?
And
dude?
all of those people are gone, and
You
he's
never
signing
played
the biggest
sport.
contract.
You don't know
too.
what you're doing. You don't even really have it. I hate to think about like most
And I
of the
can't relate to you.
most
Yeah.
of the ESPN guys that we watched didn't like have a team.
Yeah.
They
Well,
would.
you didn't know.
They would be like, oh,
Well,
I
you
can't
could,
tell
yeah.
you.
Yeah,
Like
that's-
Skip Bayless is like the one guy who'd be like, I'm a Cowboys guy or whatever.
Yeah,
It's like,
Stephen A. with New York, but those guys were already at the top of their game.
but
Like,
that was kind of
the
that was a
anchors.
transitional era that
Yeah.
now you would know that this guy is that.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, I think, like the sports guy getting into the athlete generated stuff is like really, really cool and
Oh, it's the
valuable.
best. Yeah. Tony Romo on there. Now we get Brady this year. Yeah, those are the most fun to watch. Belichick, even the other day, I watched him he was on Pat McAfee.
Oh, was he?
It was the first one he did. First podcast he did was Pat McAfee. And
For the
he was-
draft.
For the draft. And he was so fucking interesting. And he was giving color commentary, and he was lively, and he was not
Not as autistic
one
as I thought.
word.
Well, I think
No,
he's got a
it's-
dry sense of humor that people
but
don't realize.
He flow. You see why he was the greatest head coach,
Right.
Because when he wants to talk, he's fascinating, and he knows so much, and he goes deeper than just
Yeah.
we're moving on to Cincinnati. And you're like, fuck, man. Like, come on. This guy's got no personality. He's got personality.
He would do that every once in a while, but he knew it was a bit.
Yeah.
Where he was like, oh.
You know, he went back in the locker room and Gronk and Edelman and Brady are laughing their fucking ass off. Like, yo, you got him again, coach.
Yeah.
It's like Greg Popovich. Same thing. When he wants to be stone cold, he's locked in. He doesn't answer questions on courtside. He just walks away. But then sometimes he'll smile and give some, you know, some funny ass anecdote or something, and it's great. And then other times he's a whiny bitch. But
my
whatever.
new favorite interview is Jokic.
Oh, yeah.
It is unbelievable. I got caught into a rabbit hole. I didn't realize that he was so funny.
He's so funny.
And like LeBron's trying to do a version of him now where like it's not all about basketball. But I'm like, dude, you're not doing it the same way. Like,
it has to be
Jokic,
natural.
like literally
Can't be
is like,
forced.
Here's the parades on Thursday. He's like, this is
sucks.
horrible.
Yeah. You want to go home?
I have a horse race on Saturday.
Yeah.
I cannot do this.
Did you see the guy say his name right the other day? And he just lit up. He was like looking like this, and the guy goes, Nicola. And he looks around like, who said my name the right way? He goes, oh, and he said something in Serbian, and the guy responded. And he was just so elated to be like a countryman, you know? But it's like, that's the real personality. But he was just sitting like miserable before it.
Loving Eastern European.
he's like everybody, as you know, like everybody hates their job. But he's like, yeah, maybe some people don't. And you're just like, oh, this is after a championship.
Yeah.
Like,
No, he didn't give a fuck about that
hates his
championship.
job.
Yeah.
No.
He wanted to get home. They were like the parades on Tuesday. He's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like Monday, I need to be back in thing. And then you see his brothers in the stands just beating the shit out of people. Those guys, they need to not come visit again. We're
going to send it back in this year, though. T-Wolves are sending them home, dude.
I think you guys give them a good run, but I do think the Nuggets win still.
You think they take a
No, they don't
championship?
Nuggets?
Yeah.
I think they'll go to the I don't know who can stop them. I'm very curious what happens in the East. The Celtics don't look dominant.
It's coming out of the West this year.
I mean, I believe it, but I don't. I mean, then I think the Nuggets are repeating. If it's a West team, the other two are just too young right now.
We luckily kind of have
the
their
Thunder
number,
and the Wolves.
Like we match up well against them.
Match up very well
in a way that a lot of other teams just can't figure it out.
Only team with 2 7-footers who can body Jokic.
Yeah.
I don't think you can stop Jokic, but just pissing him off and having Rudy there taller and Cat's athleticism, that is more difficult for him than any other team can present right now. But every team needs that test. The Timberwolves are flying, they're riding high. Anthony Edwards is telling people to suck it on court, which is just mind-blowing. And the NBA loves it, but now you're going to run into a championship team and see what you got. I think they lose this one, and then they come back next year completely unstoppable.
Well, we're kind of who the Nuggets were last year, of like people, small market.
And the Nuggets lost to the Lakers before and then came back like, okay, we're not losing to Big Brother again, and now they look unstoppable.
Yeah.
I think every team needs that test in every sport,
For sure.
You got to get over that hurdle, and then you're ready. Like Michael Jordan. Couldn't beat the bad boy Pistons. They fucking bodied him, and then he came back the next year with some weight on him. He's like, I'm not going to be joking around and having fun. I'm coming in to fuck shit up. And I think Anthony Edwards is still in that having fun while fucking people up, having fun. Like, you need to Kobe lock in and be mean and stop chirping and sucking and whatever.
Yeah, well, I think that's Towns' energy.
Yeah,
I think he doesn't like
bullshit.
cement our locker room with this level of like fucking
Karl
get
Anthony
him.
Towns. Yeah, I can't stand him.
He has this weird,
Can't stand him.
Which is why you guys failed with just him all the time.
Yeah. Oh, that's
And
literally
Jimmy.
That's why Jimmy
And
Butler
Jimmy
left.
fucking hated
is
him.
He's like this guy.
Not
just
taking it
will
seriously.
Not take it seriously.
Yeah. And he's the most talented player maybe in the NBA.
Imagine Butler with Ant.
Oh my God.
Like
That's
animals,
a workhorse team.
Like holy.
And Ant would have become Ant 2 years before because Jimmy would have been like, "You're not fucking
Get in
special.
the
Who the
fucking
fuck do you
locker-
think you?"
Yep.
And Ant would have just locked in. Oh,
that would have been
great.
scary,
Yeah.
dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's
But you're gonna see it
Glenn Taylor
this or next year.
just always doing anything he can to mess up the
worst.
T-Wolves. But
There's some bad owners out there.
what do you think, like within like your knowledge of the space, like where do you think this is all like merging within the way that like sports betting's coming so in the fold, fantasy football, everything's just like floating in the ether. Like ESPN's on the ropes.
Yeah.
And even where like the NFL is with like contracts with like NBC and all that, it's like, why are you doing this? Like cut the cord, all of that stuff. Do you feel a through line that seems obvious, or?
I think everyone's kind of floundering. It's like a lot of treading water until somebody makes the big move. Like the NBA keeps losing ratings and trying to come up with
MLB's a mess.
gimmicks. Yeah, MLB actually with their treading water, they found a couple things that work, making the bases bigger, the pitch clock.
I mean, on TV wise,
yeah,
it's a mess.
No, they're not killing it, but they're holding viewership, and they're like getting a small uptick in younger viewership. Hockey, we all know, has been through the works over the last 10 years with their rule changes. But all these sports that didn't change for 50 years, except for maybe the advent of the 3-point line, have all started to really try gimmicky shit. And it's like they're losing an audience to our space with podcasts, but now podcasts are finally helping bring an audience back to mainstream television.
Like the McAfee going live.
Exactly.
Like those collaborative efforts are those.
If
that's
he had gone
really
to
fun.
Spotify, ESPN might die. But now with him going to ESPN, they bring an audience back, and like I don't love Pat McAfee's show, but I appreciate what it's doing for ESPN and kind of nipping their bullshit in the butt. But I don't know exactly where it's going, but it is interesting to be in it in a time like this because it's all
available.
Major shit that's changing.
Yeah.
It's not little things anymore. It's mass changes that are happening, and it's interesting watching the NFL. I think they lost a lot of young Americans playing the sport because of the concussions and moms being like, I don't want my kid playing this, and it was a lot of those, I don't know. I mean, it's all racist, but now we see so many more black quarterbacks, and it's so good for the sport because we get these athletes, and now they've, tuned it more towards offense. So we get so many. I mean, look at the round one of the NFL draft was 14 straight offensive players.
21,
22, 23, 23 offensive players taken in a 32 player round. Like everything's going offensive, but now we're branching to overseas. We've got Germany, we've got Mexico, we've got, I think they're doing London, Brazil this year. Like,
I wonder when the NFL is
so
going to have
global.
an influx of like a different country coming in.
Well, that's what
to perform.
That's what they're building.
Right.
Yeah.
Like we haven't seen that new
big
style.
German
like you almost saw
tight
like
end.
The
Aussies
NBA
with
was
rugby. They were trying to like make their way.
They brought in
for
a running back
second.
for the Chargers and the Vikings actually.
Well, and that guy from San Francisco.
They brought in that German
San
guy.
Francisco too.
Jusek or something like that.
I can't remember. I'm gonna
Jusek?
butcher a name.
I don't know.
Yeah, but they've. I think they got a little taste of it, and then we're like, okay, look at what the NBA's done when they went overseas, and now the entire league is Giannis, Luka, Wembanyama, Jokic. Like
It's a wrap.
those are the best players in the league.
Yeah.
LeBron, Curry, and Durant are on their way out. Other than Anthony Edwards, it's like there aren't a lot of Americans dominating this league anymore. It's
Team
really crazy
France
to see.
for this Olympics is going to be scary.
Oh my god!
Team USA should be like
In
shaking.
4 years,
Oh my
when
God.
Wemby's 23, these teams
No
are
gold
just
medals.
incredible.
It used to be just be like gold medal.
And
America's got to be scared.
Embiid, great for us, pussy for the rest of the world. He was
Cameroon.
supposed to play with France or Cameroon,
Yeah.
but he turned his back on France. Imagine France with Wemby and Embiid.
Yeah,
We're not winning
stupid.
anymore. Yeah,
No.
So it's cool seeing other sports go global. I'm sure the NFL is always the biggest dog in the yard.
They're doing a Canada game, right? This year?
Probably
NFL?
I think
They're
they're
taking
pitching
over.
a Canada game.
I mean, they should.
Yeah.
Because Canada actually likes the CFL. Like, half of them.
That's so embarrassing.
Canada
I
just kind of sucks.
Canada
though.
sucks, dude.
They're like a perfect little brother
That's
for
where
the
we
US,
need
and I love that.
the wall,
But, like-
on that side.
Why don't they propose that?
Fuck propose it. Just start building.
Just do
What
it.
is Canada going to do? Not kick it down?
Yeah.
Hey, you stop that. Fuck you. You have no guns. You got shit weather. Build the wall just to block the cold weather. You know how nice
Minnesota would be
America will
great.
be? That's where it's all coming from.
Yeah.
And then they do the like, you can't come here if you have a DUI.
Yeah.
We don't want to come there anyway.
That's a weird rule.
It's very weird. It's very weird.
Fuck out of here.
Does anyone know why?
Do you think it's like, I mean,
It's their little
we're the
twist.
racist country, but they're like stopping
Okay,
gangbangers
who's
have a
not drinking and
DUI.
driving in Canada though? Like, right?
I mean, you
'Cause
got to
it is-
stay warm somehow.
Yeah.
All like the fishing guys that get screwed. Like I had so many buddies that ruined fishing trips because you can't get caught, or like your boat is like there's times where your boat will run out of gas and you have to go fill up in Canada and you got a guy in the boat and he's like, dude, I can't be here.
Leave me at the border.
I don't think
We'll
it should
come
really
back
be that
for
big of
you.
an issue, but
Start
still,
waiting.
it's like
Yeah.
it's interesting.
No, Canada sucks.
That's
They've
funny.
developed no athletes except for hockey. They got Andrew Wiggins, and he's a bust.
That's right. Well, they got Bieber, but
Bieber's great. I'll take
yeah.
Bieber.
Music, they've done well.
Yeah.
Drake.
Music, acting. I like Ryan Reynolds.
Oh yeah.
But it really ends there.
Milk Boys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's few and far between for the Canadian excitement. But yeah, I don't know how we got on this. I don't know where sports is going.
Yeah.
We'll be there, so that'll be exciting. And
Mhm.
I'm happy that we're at the beginning of this. Be yourself.
Yeah.
As far
Right.
as like be fun. Don't be yourself if you're fucking boring.
Sure.
Go home
Yeah.
if you're boring. Go get into be a librarian or something.
Well, it's like different strokes for different folks. Like that's what this media circle is now.
Mhm.
Like you can go watch Joe Buck or you can watch Eli Manning talk about,
Oh yeah.
you know,
Him
like
and Peyton are fucking
yeah.
funny.
But some people hate it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I like it.
Well, it's funny because one, podcasting had such a big like influx early, and like there's I don't even know how many millions of podcasts there are, but then again, where we are with like Instagram and TikTok, the people that are winning within like the gimmicky, the clickbait, and all that stuff. But I still bet long on long form because you'll find like these shows that speak at a certain tonality that like isn't screaming at you all the time. You can hear it a little bit more deeper winded, even though Vikings Banter is going to be screaming at you. I would still
Absolutely.
bet that like in long term, you're going to want to be in spaces where you like, you can hear people out. And I want to bring on the guys that like had said something crazy that everybody had vilified them. Like it's fun to be like, what were you thinking about that day? And I want Purple Banter to be graded in 10 years, not in 6 months, because I think our biggest position of strength will be to stay and like be in a space. I will bet long on Hollywood and LA's influence as much as people are like Nashville, Minnesota, Austin. It's all going to kind of come back here for
LA's
one
coming
freaking
back.
reason, the weather and the tapestry of the landscape. When you get the money, you're going to move here.
Yeah.
The royal freaking Meghan Merkel
Yeah.
like literally went and grabbed a bag and immediately was like, we got to go to Calabasas. I hate America, but like this is where you want to go. And so I'd always bet long on that.
Yeah, I think the strength of Purple Banter, which is why I'm a believer in the company in itself, not just Vikings Banter, which obviously I have a personal vested interest in.
Yeah.
But the beauty of Purple Banter is it's about personalities more so than just shows. Like you arrive at Purple Banter and like, yeah, you can do Vikings Banter, you can do Smoochy Town, you can do all these other great shows. But if something happens that we want to talk about, you can just jump on Purple Banter and start talking.
Right.
Similar to Dave Portnoy, who it's like, you don't need to see the show. If you want something specific, go to the show. But you also have this opportunity, or we all do, to just jump on at any time and start a new conversation.
Right.
So
Yeah, and
there's few
breathe.
places that have that. You're not going to find, I don't know, fucking, you want to do a gardening show one day, you're not going to find that on Pat McAfee. You're going there for just sports.
Yeah. And we have the biggest dog rescue podcast in the game, the biggest drinking podcast with what we're drinking in the game by Dan Dunn.
yeah.
He built that. We just
He
now
did that,
support
yeah.
him in his continued growth.
But if tomorrow you feel the need to talk about this new, game-changing pillow, you can just jump on and talk about that pillow.
Yeah, I would love to get Purple pillows and Purple mattresses to be our biggest sponsor.
Oh, Purple mattress.
I have a purple mattress.
And they're phenomenal.
Do you?
Great. I
Well,
do.
you need to throw that out until
I
they start
know.
paying you to.
I thought about
know.
hanging them from the Hollywood sign and be like, I will burn this mattress if you don't
I mean,
sponsor
we
us.
can just slice it. I'm down.
No, it's too nice of a mattress.
It's
heavy
really
as
nice.
fuck,
It's
isn't
so
it?
heavy.
Yeah, no,
Don't
that's
ever
not
move
going
with the purple
anywhere.
mattress.
Really?
Oh my god! And there's no handles on
Is
it.
there like gel in there and
It's
stuff?
like
It's
a
and
heavy
it's self-cooling
gel.
and
heavy.
self-heating and stuff?
I don't know, but when I moved from my apartment to like my new apartment, I tricked Chris House into doing it, like moving my shit with me, and we had to have 6 people. Like the 2 of us were moving it, and then all of my neighbors came out and were like, "Do you guys want help?" We're like, "I think we need help." It was bad.
God, we'll cut that out.
What's that like to have sex on?
Sturdy, probably, I would imagine.
Yeah,
But like,
it's like the right
like,
amount of balance.
when I think of gel, it's like feels like a waterbed or something. You're like on one side and then you like slam on the other.
Water
It's
beds
very-
were a big
it's very
joke
even.
that everyone like you. As I always feel like middle schoolers were like, man, one day I want to hook up on
Because
that
you
one
like
bed."
think
girl
it's like
with a
supposed to be
waterbed.
hot.
And you're just like,
Really?
you sleep on a waterbed. You're like, this is horrific.
Yeah. Oh, it's horrible. But the problem is you would lay down and all the water would just leave, and then you were just stuck on no water, and then somebody would sit next to you and it would like blub you.
And then
you're
it's
like,
tight.
what the fuck?
So it's this
Yeah.
weird. It's literally the worst version of a cot that you would have on a camping.
Yeah.
It was an idea where like, okay, it's like reinventing the wheel, which everyone says don't do, but you should absolutely do. Like, just find a different version for the wheel to make sense, which is what we've done forever. The mattress could be tweaked, and they just went the wrong way. Like foam took over the world.
Yeah.
They went water. But the guy
and
was
there was
onto
nowhere
something.
to put fish.
No.
There was
fish
no
wasn't
like.
going.
I was thinking like my buddy
And then you
had
just
a
have a bunch
waterbed.
of
I'm
dead
like, where can you
fish.
put like? Can we get
Yeah,
fish?
there's no oxygen though.
Figure it out. Grow a better fish. Like grow a waterbed fish
Quite.
or something.
Yeah, reinvent the fish.
Reinvent
Yeah.
the fish. All
There it
right.
is.
And they don't need the oxygen. They have the
Yes,
gills.
they do.
I thought they live off.
No,
of...
you need oxygen.
Oxygen.
I'll have to rewatch.
No, you need
Shark's
oxygen.
Tale and figure that out.
That'll definitely do it.
But if you're gonna have waterbed, you better have like goldfish in it. I feel like that's also the point too.
Ew.
Just put, I mean,
That's creepy though. If you
It's
felt the
so
little
creepy.
things just poking at you.
get little piranhas in there.
Ooh.
Yeah, no, waterbed was not the move. Purple bed, interesting. We should have a full. You could probably bring this to Smoochie Town or whichever one is the most actively fucking. Just try all the
Smoochie
different.
Town's a sex podcast.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
sex
they are
on
not
all the
fucking
different
on
kinds
my
of
purple
beds.
mattress.
Get all the kinds of beds
That's
and
actually a
rank
great idea.
which bed is best to have
That's
sex
why we're
on.
bringing them into the.
That's
fold
a
here.
great
These
idea.
big guy ideas. You're the
Yeah.
big brain ideas.
And then, yeah, you take that to the bed companies and go, you're the best bed to have sex on.
Yeah.
We will not release this information without six-figure deal.
100%.
Unbelievable.
I love this.
Yeah. Well, that's where we're at. This is Luke Davis.
What a way to end.
Future
Yeah.
idea man for a podcast.
Yeah, he's the big brain now at Purple Banter.
He's creating a fish that will exist without oxygen.
I'm not making that.
No,
That's
I have
all
rights to
I'll
that.
take.
That's you. Okay.
Yeah, I have
I
all
will
the
not
rights to
hang
that.
my hat on that.
But thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank
I'm excited
you.
for our friendship moving forward. I hope you're
Yeah.
around the next 37.
Almost happy birthday.
Yeah, almost collab. Happy birthday coming up pretty soon. But over and out. God bless you all. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Nice.